here with Matt M., and he is somebody I have just met recently via email. I ran across him through someone else who I happened to find on the internet, and he discovered our podcast and listened to some episodes, and I thought, boy, it'd be nice to have you on, Matt. So thank you for agreeing to be here. Welcome to Beyond Belief.
Thanks for having me.
So generally what we do here, as you know from the episodes you listen to, is kind of get to know somebody through their recovery story. I wonder if you wouldn't mind kind of introducing us that way, where you got started off and, what brought you into recovery and how you're doing today. And we'll just let the conversation flow from that.
Yeah, sure. My name is Matt, and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is, we call it October 15th of 2008. I'm not really sure that that's the right date because I wasn't intending on recovering. I know a lot of people are in the same spot, but that's what we decided was a pretty close approximation of my date.
Mm-hmm.
So I've heard a lot of people tell their stories about a slow descent into alcoholism. That's not my story. The first time I drank, I'm the youngest of four Irish twins. So that means each of my brothers were born a year apart.
Oh, wow.
So I did everything at an earlier age than everybody else because I was the last one.
Two sets of twins in your family? Two sets of twins?
No. It's called Irish twins when you're 1 year apart.
Oh,
so yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. That's actually something I never heard before.
Oh, yeah.
Right,
And
gotcha.
my mother was 21 when she had me, and I was her fourth kid, so she was pretty busy.
Gotcha.
And the first time I drank was between 7th and 8th grade. And I joke about this. I drank the exact same amount that I always drink, which is all of it. I drank enough to tip over, get sick, run out or whatever. And I drank all of the amaretto I had that I could get. And then I tipped over. And that was my first experience with drinking. And I would say all the way up until I got into high school, a kid that age doesn't have a lot of access to drugs and alcohol, but I got whatever I could. I took whatever I could. I did as many chemicals as I could. I had gotten, some PCP laced marijuana when I was probably 14 from a Grateful Dead concert. I was really kind of off the rails by the time I started high school. And that's the first time that I had decided that I was going down the wrong path. I left campus at lunchtime with a known drug user, and I got good and stoned, and I was carrying marijuana with me, and I came back onto the campus, and one of the football coaches caught me, and I was very into football. It was something I really loved to do, and I was a freshman, and he was a sophomore coach, and he pulled me aside, and he said, I just asked you, I was wearing my jersey because it was a Friday. Okay, you do that before the game. And he said, I just checked. You're Matt McDermott. You're this kid who's supposed to be so good at football, and you just left with that girl. And I know what you guys did. And I was scared shitless. And he said, he's a very good friend of mine now. But he said, Matt, I'm not gonna frisk you. I'm not gonna search you. I'm gonna let you go back into school. But you're gonna make a decision. Either you're gonna do drugs and alcohol, or you're gonna do wrestling and football. And at that point, at that moment, I decided, hey, you know what? He's right. I don't need to be messing around. So I guess I was probably 14 or 15, and I decided I need to stop. This is crazy. It's not helping me. And it would be a pretty boring story if that was the end of it, but it's not. So what I did for the first few years of high school is as soon as the football season started, I stopped all chemical use. I didn't do anything for the entire football season, which took us into November. And then for the entire winter wrestling season up until March, I did no drugs, no alcohol. And then as soon as wrestling ended, the summer season started. During the spring and summer wrestling, I would only do drugs and alcohol Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I wouldn't do it Thursday or Friday or Saturday because I thought that was the way to go. And it worked. I mean, it worked. I was, I was taking care of what I had to take care of. I was getting very good grades at school. I was, I was a starting, as a junior, I was a starting linebacker on a nationally ranked football team. And I was I was a nationally ranked wrestler. It was unbelievable. Everything was great.
Mm-hmm.
And I sustained a very serious injury halfway through the summer season of my junior year, and I grew up in a kind of a working class area, and my parents were incredibly busy, and we ran wild during the summer. And when I injured myself, I went completely off the rails. I mean, I was working for my father's construction company. I had money. At 16, I had a full beard. I'm right off the west side of Chicago. I could go buy whatever booze I wanted. I can get whatever I wanted, and I did. And I went nuts. And this is really the first time that I had any real consequences from drinking. Um, by about June, about a month before the national tournament in wrestling, I was cleared by the doctor to wrestle, and they said you can join the team, you can wrestle in nationals, which was quite an honor, and there was no way I could do it. I was so far gone, I couldn't. And all I said was, I had dislocated my elbow, and it's just not healed enough. I can't do it. I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm sorry. I have to pass because of my physical injuries. And that marked the first time that I was really not honest with myself or with anybody in the entire world. I didn't tell one soul that the reason I'm not competing in nationals is because I've gone too far off the deep end. And I made it through the summer. I survived, and when it was time for football, I was just tired of it anyway. So I did my regular plan. I stopped drinking. I stopped drugs for the football season. Had a pretty average football season. And then wrestling, I stayed clean for wrestling. The year before, I didn't lose my first match until the last match of the season as a junior. As a senior, I lost my first match. And I was a really disappointing season. And it happens, but I attribute it to what I had put myself through in the summer. But by the time wrestling ended, things had kind of come to a head. My parents were gone a lot, and I ended up really getting carried away with drugs and alcohol. Um, I had another injury in wrestling in the spring season, and when I took that time off, I went nuts. I was failing all my classes, and ended up having a coach intervene, and he said, this is more than you can handle yourself. You need help. You need to stop drinking. And I took to it. I accepted it. And it wasn't a 12-step program, but it was, I went to a counselor and I kind of addressed the issues. I told him what I was doing, and he said, "That's insane. That's not how you deal with alcoholism. You don't quit drinking sometimes." So I quit the chemicals, and I decided I was going to stay sober forever, no matter what. And it worked for a while. I mean, I was able to put together a really good spring and summer wrestling tournament. I had lost all hope of scholarships because of my winter season, and then I ended up placing in nationals, so I was back. I got money to go to college to wrestle and everything, so I was pretty happy. I was sober for a while. I would say I was sober for 3 years, 2 years maybe, starting college. Things were great. I wrestled. I took a wrestling tour in Europe, and I was the only sober wrestler on the entire tour, and I was really having a lot of success. And then same story. My second season in college, I had an injury I didn't think I could recover from, and I went from getting from getting A's and B's to failing all of my classes.
Mm-hmm.
No scholarship. I was gone. I no longer was welcome at that school, and that's the way it was. So I had done
You
2
were a
years of
young
college.
person.
I was I was
I'm
young.
wondering, what were you thinking? Like, you were in high school. You were in high school, and you had someone talking to you about alcoholism. Did you connect that you could possibly have a problem with alcohol at that age?
I knew the very first time I took a drink. By
Really?
then, it was in the late 70s, early 80s, and they were talking about it in health class. The very first time I touched alcohol, I knew that I had a problem with alcohol. I knew that it was not a good mix for me.
Wow. See,
Um,
you and I have something in common because I also was having problems early in life, and I also went to high school in 1970s. So, um, but for me, I guess I was 19 years old when I first started thinking that I had a problem, but I kept telling myself I was too damn young. but you knew. That's what I find so amazing. And anyway, but so you had this information, but it didn't really, it wasn't enough to really get you to really do anything at that time anyway.
Not at that time, but when I failed out of college or left college, whatever you want to say,
Right.
my parents weren't real interested in helping out financially because I was getting paid to go to college, and I decided that
Yeah.
it was too hard. So I came back to Chicago, started working, put myself through a few more years of college, and I quit drinking fairly soon. Before I was 21, I quit, and this time it lasted for a long time. And to be perfectly honest with you, I stopped drinking. No, didn't address any other issues. No 12-step program or anything. But basically, my dreams came true. It was the life that I never thought I could have.
Mm.
I was, I wasn't really able to compete much in wrestling, but I was coaching,
Oh.
and I met my wife, and I would say I had a pretty good degree of sobriety for about 8 or 9 years.
Oh my
We got
goodness.
married, we started our family, and it wasn't the sobriety I have now. I mean, maybe once or twice, I think I had 5 years of no drinking at all. And then
Uh-huh.
after that, once or twice a year, I would drink a little bit, or not a little bit, I would drink until I passed out.
Yeah.
And then, but I don't know, at some point it snowballed, and I just started, I wasn't, an everyday drinker right away. It started where after work on Friday at 3 o'clock, I would start drinking. And it's weird because once I started, I wouldn't stop. But when 3 o'clock on Sunday came around, I would stop drinking because I didn't want to work hungover. And it was like that for a while. And then, I had my first house I owned in Phoenix. And the first exception I had to my drinking rules, because I had a lot of rules to moderate drinking, my first exception was if I was working on the roof in
Yeah.
Phoenix on my air conditioning unit in the summer, I was allowed to drink, and it didn't matter if it was Thursday or Wednesday, and it didn't
If you
matter
were
if it was 10 in
working
the
on the
morning.
roof, you would be allowed to.
I was allowed to drink. Yeah, I don't ask me; it doesn't make sense. But other exceptions followed, and it got to the point where where I was drinking. By the time it ended, I did that went on for 8 or 9 years, and by the
Mm.
time it ended, I was drinking every day. I was drinking hard liquor, and I was absolutely miserable. I knew it was something that couldn't go on. I had a car accident that I didn't get a DUI or anything. I don't know if I could have or not. I hadn't been drinking before I drove, but I was drinking the night before, and I was drinking vodka. So I don't know. I don't know what I would have blown, but I wasn't asked to. I was glad, but that was kind of a wake up. I totaled the car. I was uninjured, and at that point, my wife was really, really fed up with me. I was pretty fed up with myself. I wasn't achieving what I wanted to. I mean, I always had a job. I always provided for my family and everything, but that was it. I was doing the bare minimum. Um, and I just, I had put in some windows for a wrestling coach I had known for years. And this is a couple months before I came into the program. And he didn't, at the time, he didn't have a ton of money, and I needed a work van, and he had a real crappy van. I said, I'll tell you what, it would have been 400 or 500 for the windows. Give me the van and we'll call it even. And he said, great. And I got the van, and I'd known this guy since 1982. I've known him forever, and I'd never clued in because I'm a little selfish sometimes that he was an alcoholic. And sitting on the passenger seat, there was a pamphlet
Oh.
for alcoholism. If you ever need help, this is the way to go about it. And I made a mental note of that. And when I decided that it was time to get sober, I had done other sobriety things with my wife, and I knew that the other things weren't going to work. I knew it was time that I needed to give myself a little breathing room. I needed to catch my breath for a couple months, and then I could go back to life. But I couldn't do it just by telling her I was going to stop. I had to go talk to this guy. I had to tell her, yeah, I'm going to go talk to Niall. I'm going to try to get involved in AA, and I'm going to really address this. And I didn't really intend on doing it, but I intended on starting the process. And so I went and talked to him, and basically, we had a nice talk, and I was thinking this talk will be over soon, and I can get home, and I had some vodka stashed, and And I was fine with that. I was going to do this for a couple months, then I was going to get on with my life. And right as I was leaving, he said, "Hey, do you think you could stay sober till you call me tomorrow?"
Mm.
And I don't know why. I answered right away. I said, "Yeah, sure, I can do that. I mean, I can, for one day." And that's what I did. I went home, and I have no idea why. I poured the vodka out, and and I don't know exactly what date that was, but it was
Mm-hmm.
sometime in the middle of October in 2008. And I started going to meetings with him, and that's, as of now, that's the last time I drank.
And what
it's
was
been
your
12
initial
years.
impression? What was your initial impression of the meetings when you started attending?
Um, my sponsor is picture an Irish Catholic from Ireland. That's my sponsor. He's a
Okay.
very religious person. And the first meeting I went to, and the one that I went to as my home meeting for the first couple of years, was a second step meeting.
Oh.
Um, and my initial impression was that I was joining a cult, that I was part of a religious organization, and but I loved the community of it. I
Right.
loved the fellowship, and I was just I was shocked that some of the people I ran into were people that I had known and really respected, and I couldn't believe that they were suffering from the same problem I was. So it was because it was AA. Um, I'd never been involved in a religious
Mm-hmm.
as in any religion as a participant since I
Mm-hmm.
was a child.
Mm-hmm.
But I had studied religion. I majored in philosophy, and I really focused on religion
Mm-hmm.
as a non-believer. But my first impression was that there were some nice people who were suffering from the same thing I was. That was the main thing I remember now, 12 years later. I don't know if that's
Yes.
really what I was thinking.
No, I think that was me too. That's what made the difference for me. I remember looking at the steps and traditions that were on the wall, and the first step and the third tradition made sense to me, and I was really happy to see that. The rest of the stuff looked really mysterious and weird, but when the people shared their stories with me, and what the thing about it was they gave me hope because they could describe how they felt about their drinking and the problems that they had because of their drinking. And even though the problems might not have been identical to mine, I could understand how they felt about those problems. And the weird thing about it was they were outside of the problem. So they were sitting there like wearing their suits, they had jobs and everything, and they were talking about, as in the past tense, their drinking. And it just kind of inspired me and gave me hope that, I could do that. So I was able to kind of put aside all the, because I'm like you, I did not go to, I have no religious background whatsoever. And so the God stuff and the praying and everything was foreign to me, but I was able to kind of put that aside and maybe make it work somehow because the people.
Yeah, and you know what? I think one of my biggest surprises in this program is the way my sponsor reacted to my religious beliefs,
Mm,
because I expected things to be shoved down my throat. I really did. I mean, I've heard horror stories about people who try to get involved with something like AA and it doesn't work for them
right.
if they're agnostic or atheist, and and my sponsor said right away, he said, I don't even care what your religious views are. I don't care how you pray. I don't care what you do. I just think that you've landed in that chair because your life wasn't going the way that you wanted it to. So you're going to have to make some changes. And it's going to start by you not believing that you're making all the right decisions, and just kind of let go and trust other people, or
Good.
figure out a higher power. And he didn't make me define it. I didn't define my higher power for years. And he didn't care. He just
Hmm.
said, keep coming to meetings. And for me, I mean, honestly, I've been at this for over 12 years, and I never have more than, I never have a week when I don't go to a meeting. My regular schedule is 3 meetings a week. And And a couple of them, at least one of them, is a traditional meeting where you read, you do all the readings and stuff. I can't recite the 12 steps, and I'm not going to be able to because they're just not that important to me.
Interesting.
The important thing is like what we're doing right now because this
Right.
counts as a meeting. And I don't know. This is what brings me to my sobriety is the fellowship of the meetings. And I've sponsored people who are very religious, and I've sponsored
Right.
people who are atheist, and it doesn't matter.
So tell me that sponsor. I like that sponsor, by the way. Is he still your sponsor?
He is.
How about that? And so he gives you the freedom to experience your recovery as you choose to. He's not forcing you to do steps and etc.
No, we worked the steps going through, and we really, as far as the real God-centered steps, we really didn't focus on him too
Right.
much.
Good.
He was really concerned with making amends,
Yeah.
and that part of it, and just he was very concerned with going forward in a proper manner.
How
Don't
about
don't
that?
don't do things. Like one of the things that I didn't understand at first and I do now is he said, don't tell anybody you're sorry. You've said that enough. You were an
Yes.
alcoholic. You were a drinking alcoholic. You've said that enough. Tell people that you should have acted differently, and
Yeah.
it'll be different for them and you. Don't accept responsibility. Understand you've made a mistake and move on. Don't say you're
Good.
sorry because you've said that enough.
Wow,
Um,
you were sure fortunate to meet him. That's really, really lucky. I ran into some people who tried to get me to conform, and I did end up conforming to their idea of what I should be believing and doing and saying. So that was really great that he gave you that liberty to define it yourself. It's important.
it was huge. It was absolutely huge. And I found out just recently we have a meeting. We have a small meeting that during the pandemic. Um, I open up my wood shop, which is a large floor space, so we can have a meeting with 5 or 6 people spaced out. And we're doing, it's just you do the daily reflections, and
Hmm.
then you have a meeting on that. And a lot of times he picks up the book and reads it. And I didn't, he'd been doing this for a whole year, and I didn't realize it. Um, when I did the reading one Saturday, I was like, "Wow, this is a lot about God." And Niall, that's my sponsor, he said, "Matt, I always replace the word God with higher power for you and Jeff, because I know how you guys are, and I just think it's easier for you guys to digest higher power than God."
Right, right,
So
right.
that's
You talking about the Daily Reflections book? Is that
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's pretty heavy with the God stuff, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and like when I do the reading, I'll do the reading and I'll do the meditation. I won't read the prayer. And
Uh-huh.
the people at the meeting, it's 50-50. There's some of the people are religious and traditional AA and some of them aren't, and that's fine.
Uh-huh.
Um, but it's the main thing that my sponsor was concerned about, and this is what I learned from him, is the main thing is it works for me.
Okay. And
It
I'm not
doesn't have
sure
to
where
work.
you're located. Are you like in the Chicago area?
I'm just west of Chicago. I'm in Oak Park, where Frank Lloyd Wright is from, and where Ernest Hemingway is from.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We're
So
supposed to we're supposed to tell somebody that whenever we tell them we're from Oak Park.
okay. So obviously Chicago is where secular AA meetings started. So were you familiar with there being these secular meetings, and have you attended any of those?
Yeah, it's we have two Quad A meetings,
Uh-huh.
which is Alcoholics Anonymous for atheists and agnostics
Right. Yeah.
in Oak Park. And one of them was on a night I couldn't make it. The other one I've attended. I don't love the meeting. It's really crowded and it's really long.
Oh, really?
But after the meeting, they get together at a local restaurant, and I often go to the restaurant and meet up with them after the meeting.
Oh, how about
Um,
that?
but yeah, no, and it's fine. They do. It's through the club, so they do all of the readings, which I think is kind of soft stepping an atheist meeting if you're reading the prayers.
Isn't that funny?
But
There's another group, the Cleveland group. I went to their Zoom meeting, and they read how it works when they open their meeting. They're free thinkers, but they read how it works. And I remember, for me, I thought, well, that's strange for a secular meeting, but you know what? whatever, every group can do its own thing. And for them, they could still read that and it was totally okay with them and secular. In fact, when I attended that meeting, they had me read how it works. There is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now.
Yeah.
and I read, when I was reading it, I was like forcing myself to get it out. And someone said, that was a real interesting cadence you had when you read that. You read it differently than.
Um, you
It's
know,
like,
the
because I couldn't
meeting,
believe the words I was saying. That's why.
the meeting that I run, I don't do any
No.
prayers at the end, and I don't do. One of the members recites something at the beginning. I don't even really know what it is, but the only thing I do at the beginning of the meeting is just say this is a closed meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. You're welcome to attend if you have a sincere desire to stop drinking, and that's about as far as I go with it because that's not what my program is about. I mean, I've had a wandering higher power, and I'm perfectly fine with that. It started out as my higher power was a group, which I think a lot of atheists do.
Mhm.
And then Neil Steinberg wrote a book called Drunkard. He's a columnist. It's actually a great book. It's just how he stopped drinking. And this was hugely important to me. His higher power was alcohol. And the way he explained it is I know that if I do battle with her, I'm going to lose. I absolutely know that, and he started in AA, and he's not anymore. I don't. He's not a religious man at all. I've met him. I've talked to him, and his higher power is alcohol, and it makes perfect sense because if you do battle with alcohol, you're going to lose. And I've had 2 times when I quit drinking, and everything I wanted in the entire world I had. Both times I quit drinking, and I gave it up both times. And the reason I gave it up, in retrospect, was I decided that I could have one drink. I decided that I was going to fight my third or fourth drink, not my first one. And I've learned now that I put all my soldiers up against the first drink because I can beat that one. I'm not going to beat the second drink. And if I do the first time, next time I'm not going to beat the second drink. I have to beat the first drink.
Yeah. So you also like to listen to recovery podcasts?
Okay. So I started running a meeting that was just a book club meeting.
It was book club.
It's been going on for 2 years now, where we do a different book every 2 months.
Right.
And it's a platoon system where every other book is really closely tied to AA. It's a memoir by
Right.
somebody. It's really related. And then the next book will be something like we just did There by Tommy Orange, which was a novel about Native Americans.
I bought
We've
that. I haven't read it yet.
we've done probably my favorite fiction book was Doctor Sleep by Stephen King, which is a fantastic book about AA. If you really read it
Really?
carefully,
Really?
absolutely. It's not in the movie, but it's about AA and sponsorship. It starts in an
Oh.
AA meeting and it ends in an AA meeting, and it's absolutely allegorical for AA and sponsorship.
Oh.
And then another, like we did The Lost Weekend, which was a
Mm-hmm.
famous book by.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. Started as just that, and then when the pandemic started, we decided that we should probably have a regular Thursday meeting. So every Thursday I have a meeting that's either based on a podcast, a short story, something audio,
Isn't that
or a
interesting?
song. And it's the same deal with that meeting. Every other week, it's something closely tied to the 12 steps. And then the next week, like we did a song by the Red Hot Chili Peppers that one of the younger members suggested.
How about that?
And it's amazing how quickly, I mean, some of these people are 70 years old and they're talking about how much they just enjoyed a song by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. We've done a story by David Sedaris. We've done, and then we do a lot of just like, Eric Clapton's story, Stevie Ray
Oh.
Vaughan's story, where they just tell, this is what it was like, this is what happened, this is what it's like now.
So you all
And those those
you'll
meetings are non-religious, 100% non-religious, but
sure.
it's part of AA.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And so do you all you'll read it before you get to the meeting, right? So you all kind of.
Yeah. Well, what I do is I try to keep the podcasts or the content because it's really it's YouTube videos or podcasts or songs or whatever. I try to keep them under an hour, and I send out a link to the members, and they can either listen to it on their own, or I open the Zoom meeting. If the content is a half hour, I open the Zoom meeting a half hour early and broadcast it, because some of the members have trouble
Right.
with getting stuff. So,
Wow.
and then it's the meeting starts when everybody's listened to it. Either they've listened to it on their own or they listen to it with us.
Sure. Sure. I think that's super cool. I, the more I learn about what is going on in the world of recovery, on the internet, people finding either podcast or social media groups or whatever, and using that as part of their recovery, I just think it's amazing. And also YouTube, you mentioned YouTube. There's a lot of great stuff on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
And there's some really incredible recovery channels on YouTube that I'm just kind of learning about, and it's really pretty cool, that you've got that information out there. And it's great because, people will consume media in different ways. Some people want to read a book. Some people want to listen to a podcast. Some people want to watch a video. So it's great that you have all the different types of media for different types of people.
Yeah, it works. And to me, the amazing thing is that it is just really easy for people to relate to a story and use that, and whatever the media content is works as a lead. And it's really easy for people to take, especially because we're all trained, the people at the meeting are all AA.
Right.
And it's really easy for them to say, okay, like the David Sedaris story is a story about a cat and a mouse and a frog in prison or something. And David Sedaris is a really well-known author, and he's also an alcoholic. And people would listen to that and say, oh yeah, I felt just like that mink felt when he had his pelt. It's amazing. And I like I had said before, probably my most surprising thing is having a 77-year-old man talk about how much, he asked me if I could get the Red Hot Chili Peppers song to him on a CD so he could put it in his car. And that surprises the hell out of me.
So tell me this, did this meeting start after COVID? Was this born from COVID?
The book club started before COVID, and then I added the podcast after.
Gotcha.
And it really started because me and one of my sponsees had decided that watching the television show Mom
counted as
a meeting as long as we talked about it. And we bounced it off my sponsor, and he said, oh, sure, if you guys...
I love your sponsor, by the way.
He said, if you guys watch that, and then the two of you sit down and talk about it, that's a meeting. And we're not on probation. It doesn't matter. It's all a joke for us.
Right.
But we're like, hey, Jeff, this counts as a meeting. And he rents for me. I have a large area, and he rents part of it. And when the show was running, we would have a 5-minute conversation about Mom. And then we were also...
I love that show. I thought it was a great show.
I don't know what's going on with it now. I haven't seen it in a while.
I haven't
But
either.
It was closely tied to the program, clearly. I mean,
very. I just got a kick out of it. I don't really watch a lot of television at all, but I would make some time to watch that one because I just loved it. But it's been a while since I've watched it. I would always watch like on, I can't remember where it was from, maybe on Amazon Prime or something. I'd watch some of the older episodes and stuff. So yeah, that's cool.
You can find it, and you can find it in a lot of places. And if you just chat with somebody about it, it becomes useful.
A meeting. The whole thing about a meeting is like what you and I are doing right now is a meeting. It's that it's just talking, connecting with each other, as people in recovery. That's I've come to see that as the key thing to what keeps me sober. Really.
How long have you been sober?
It'll be 33 years in July. So
wow, congratulations.
Yeah.
This isn't going to be as bad for you as it is for the people at the meetings, but what I have to say to that is, John, if you can stay sober for 33 years, I'm positive that I can go to bed sober tonight.
Okay.
And that is my program.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can, nothing against you, but
Right.
if you can do it for 33 years, then at the very least I could do it for, I mean, I have to make it for another 2 hours, and I can do that.
Yes, and I have to do it a day at a time too. And it's bizarre to me. I was just thinking about it today about how much time has gone by. Um, it just seems like it just flew. It's just incredible. But yeah, yeah, I'm pretty old. I've been around for a little while, I guess.
But my biggest eye opener, and probably one of my bigger motivations for staying sober, is my son, who is now 20.
Mm,
When he was probably 18, I was doing something with my brothers, and I don't know if you know this, but alcoholism tends to run in families.
yeah.
Um, and so my brothers were incredibly drunk and incredibly silly, and it wasn't a good drunk. It was a bad drunk. And after a while, my son looked at me and said, "Now this is a kid who's seen me do this." He said, "You've never been like that. I mean, you've never been drunk like that, right?" And I mean, the fact that he didn't remember me getting totally plastered and building toys with them in the yard and doing stupid shit, it just made me so happy. I
That's
felt I felt
great.
like I got a redo that I didn't deserve,
Ah,
you
that's
know.
wonderful.
But
And
it
that,
is, and people, like, it's amazing. Online, I'm dealing with a lot of people who are newly sober, and and everything is hard for them. And what I always tell them is, the best thing about it is, after you stack a few days together and then weeks and months, after a while, you're no longer thinking about alcohol. It's not part of your life. But also, like, everybody you deal with, you're not even going to be an ex-drinker. You're just going to be Matt. You're just going to be
right.
you. It will go away. I mean,
Yeah.
the rearview mirror isn't that bright.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, the whole thing with COVID and people getting sober during this time is incredible to me. I couldn't imagine that, uh, of having to do that, but it's great that we have so many Zoom meetings that people can get to as many meetings as they need to get to.
Yeah, it's nice. I'm glad I wasn't starting out in this. I mean, because I really relied on the fellowship, and
Oh, me
I
too.
mean, even in 10, 11, 12 years of sobriety, there's a club. There's a couple AA clubs I go to, but there's one of the main club I go to, and sometimes it's not about anything. I just need to catch my breath or something, and I'll go in there and I'll have a cup of coffee. And whoever's there, we won't talk about alcohol. It's not a meeting. How was your day, Gerald? How is everything
Right.
going? Oh, it's nice to see you, blah, blah, blah. And then you take a couple breaths and you get back to your day, you
Yep.
know.
Cool. Yeah, I relate very well. It was so nice to talk to you. I'm glad that I met you. I'm going to attend your meeting, and it's just been great. Your sponsor sounds amazing. I wish I could have had a sponsor like that. I've gone through a lot of different sponsors, but he's a good one, so you want to keep him.
I'm going to hold on to them. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, John.